Greetings. I'm Juan Sosa, CEO of the U.S. Panama Business Council, a binational organization that for 26 years has promoted trade and investment between the United States and Panama, a country with constant growth and a very attractive place to do business. USPA and ProPanama, the agency of the government of Panama responsible for promoting trade and investment, has joined forces to produce a series of podcasts highlighting the business opportunities in the country. In the last 10 years, Panama has had the largest GDP growth in Latin America. This has created constant demand for energy, and thanks to the private sector and government policies, the private sector since 1994 has been responsible for providing energy capacity. Panama has no oil, and it has Chevron as a distribution center in the Atlantic that distributes gasoline throughout 4 downstream companies across the countries. It also has warehouses for fuel to supply the more than 40 ships that transit the canal every day. Panama has seen changes in its energy source. Today, hydro represents 44%. Fuels like diesel and bunker, 27%. Natural gas has grown to 24%, while wind with 6 and solar with 3 complement the rest. The incursion of liquid natural gas, LNG, has been an important factor in the change, including the establishment of a 381 megawatts plant by private investors and a terminal to supply Central America. LNG has become, thanks to the expansion of the canal that allows for bigger and more sensitive ships for LNG, it has become the number 1 user of the expanded lock and the number 3 user of the canal after containers and LPG. The expansion of the canal has created a LNG route between Texas or the eastern coast of the United States, Panama, and Asia, the number 1 user of LNG. This has been an important factor in the expansion of the canal, and also LPG has seen increased numbers and containers. So the expansion of the canal has had a large impact in the energy capacity of Panama. Panama is part of the Central American grid and is working with Colombia for an interconnection between the 2 countries, and that will add the capacity for energy sources. At this time, I would like to introduce Ambassador Carmen Gisela Vergara, former Minister of Commerce and Industry, former Secretariat General of CIECA, the Central American Economic System, who now is the Executive Director of ProPanama. Carmen Gisela, welcome.
Thank you, Juan. Panama is shaping up to be the sustainable investment hub for the Latin American Caribbean region. This is why we are interested in attracting sustainable investments with social impact And of course, the energy sector is one of them. Our energy matrix is already almost 80% renewable energy or green energy. However, there is still room for companies to develop this type of energy in our country. As a nation, we have carried out actions to address sustainability issues and attract Type B companies, companies with a purpose, whose sustainable products are increasingly in demand from consumers. Panama's electricity transition agenda proposes we move to an even clearer matrix, which will allow us to contribute even more to reducing the effects of greenhouse gases and fight against climate change. Panama's achievements in the energy sector are worth highlighting. We are home to the largest wind farm in Central America and the Caribbean. We are also enacting an electric vehicle strategy to boost sustainable mobility. We have become a natural gas hub with a delivery capacity of up to 175,000 metric tons. We recently opened the electric route between Panama and Costa Rica, on which electric chargers have been installed along the 900-kilometer route between the two capitals. Also, in the last 2 decades, Panama has tripled its electricity generation capacity. Our energy transition strategy touches on every aspect of energy production and transmission in Panama. It addresses not only the rise of green energy, but also the potential for green technologies in public mobility, waste management, water management, in fact, in any and all areas that are related to energy. Our integrated energy plan is to create a new generation matrix comprised of renewable energy, hydro, wind, solar, and natural gas. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Andres Kluski, CEO and President of AES Corporation. Andres, as AES is one of the largest renewable energy developers and operators in the world, what has been your experience like setting up in Panama? And how has that experience affected the operations in Panama and in the region?
Hello, my name is Andres Kluski. I'm the CEO and President of the AES Corporation. We are one of the largest developers and operators of renewable energy in the world. In Panama, we have been operating for 20 years and have had a very good experience in Panama. It's a country blessed with a lot of rainfall. So we saw the opportunity to bring in LNG to Panama. LNG is a cleaner fuel. It's also a much more stable priced fuel. So today in Panama, 25% of the energy matrix is coming from natural gas, and prices are much more stable, much lower, and the country has also reduced the emissions from its power plant producers. So in the case of Panama, we are creating an energy hub to supply energy not only to the electric sector, but other sectors as well. So that includes industries, that includes transportation. And we found a very supportive environment in Panama. So I invite all of you to consider Panama as a destination for your investments.
And now let's hear from the Energy Secretary of Panama, Jorge Rivera's staff, on the status of the energy sector and the renewable energy strategy for Panama.
The Panama Energy Transition Agenda is a roadmap for the next years in our country. It comprehends measures and goals for the short, mid, and long term. It implies the approval and implementation of 5 strategies for the electricity sector and 2 strategies for our hydrocarbon sectors. Electric mobility, energy efficiency, universal access, generated distribution, and innovation of the systems are some of these strategies that we are implementing right now. We expect to have at least around $4 billion in private investment for the deployment of these strategies, not only related to our local market, but also to consolidate Panama as an energy hub for the region. We expect also to have this improvement in energy hub around LNG, around biofuels, around green hydrogen, and the interconnection of our electricity grids between Central and South America. This proposal, this energy transition agenda, we expect to have at least an impact in our GDP of around $500 million only in 2024. We expect to create more than 15 new quality jobs. We expect to reduce our subsidies and other issues that we can go and improve in our electricity and hydrocarbon sector. Panama is leading in the international and global agenda. We are part of the high-level dialogue energy from the United Nations as global champions. We are chairing the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas this year. We also are hosting the next OLADES meeting in 2022. We are part of the Global Commission for People-Centered Energy Transitions of the International Energy Agency. And we are working hard and closely with several global frameworks from the International Renewable Energy Agency. In Panama, both of our markets, electricity and hydrocarbons, date back from more than 20 years of very mature markets and liquid ones. We expect with this energy transition agenda that we strengthen the conditions for these two markets to flourish and to enhance the opportunity to have better economic development for our country and for the region.
And to tell us more about the business opportunities that the Panama Canal has to offer, we can hear from the administrator of the Panama Canal, Mr. Ricaurte Vázquez.
Are we green at this moment? No. We are not carbon neutral. We are carbon positive because we have bunker power plants. They operate occasionally, but they are there. We have gasoline and diesel cars. We have diesel tugboats, boats, and everything else. So we acknowledge that in that regard, we are not yet there. The other element is that we save the world tons of CO2 emissions because we are a shortcut. But to us, it's a given because that already is there since day one. So what can we do to improve on that? So what are we trying to do? In order to become carbon neutral by the end of the decade, we have a plan whereby we're going to change most of our assets that are CO2 producing assets into either minimizing it or making zero emissions. But we have to minimize that. The question at this moment is there enough technology to make it zero emissions? So for that reason, we did not target to be like IMO 2050, that is zero emissions. We target to be carbon neutral. In order to compensate and get the carbon credits, we have requested the government the acquisition of a significant tracts of land in order to do reforestation and do sustainable agriculture. So that will give us the credit in order to neutralize whatever marginal emissions will remain at the canal. We have major problems. What do we do with these power plants which are relatively new? We shut them down, we sell them down, we write them off. What do we do? We will replace some of our power generation with solar panels. Most of the power that we use at the Panama Canal is hydroelectric power because when we transfer from Alajuela to Gatún, then we run the power plant and run at the river mode, so that is there. We are a very efficient energy operation. We need, as far as electricity is concerned, about 30 megawatts of installed capacity. We have 168. But part of that is diesel and bunker fuel. So that is the issue. Other things that we are going to do, we are consolidating our offices in a way that we can have new buildings that are really efficient energy-related buildings. And that is something that we will do. How do we translate that into our business model? Probably by the mid of this decade, we will introduce a surcharge, if you want to call it that way, that is going to be directly related to the level of CO2 emissions the vessel brings. Because in as much as we save the world tons of CO2 emissions because we are a shortcut, those who breathe whatever remaining CO2 are Panamanians.
Yeah.
So that being said, then we have to go forward and say, okay, we're going to price accordingly. And that's the reason why probably when the shipping world comes to terms in how we're going to certify the vessel, then we will peg to that certification a price attached to it. The lower your carbon emissions, the lower the surcharge. The higher the carbon emissions, the higher the surcharge.